So you want to write music for film and TV, but every time you start researching what gear you need, you find yourself going down a rabbit hole of $3,000 microphones, $1,000 plugins, and people arguing about cable quality in the comments. Here's the truth. You don't need to remortgage your house to start composing professional sounding music for film and TV. Today, I'm breaking down the actual essentials that you'll need to get started as a media composer without breaking the bank. First up is the computer, and this is the most important investment, so here's what you'll actually need. So breaking down the components, processor-wise, you're gonna need at minimum something like an i5, AMD5, an M1 or M2. For RAM, this is really crucial for media composers. You're gonna have one piece of software, your DAW, hosting lots of programs inside, which will be your virtual instruments and your plugins. This is where the memory comes into play. With the way things are advancing today, the bare minimum that I would do would be 16 gigs of RAM. Honestly, to future-proof it, I would try going for 32 or more. Now, this is a bit of a leap forward, but to give comparison, in my last computer build, I'm running 256 gigabytes of RAM, so I could build large templates and also have large projects, and I wouldn't be bottlenecked by the computer's memory. For storage, I would go, again, with a minimum of 512, and I would always go with an SSD, because the traditional spinning disk hard drives are just going to be too slow to process everything that you're going to need. Operating system doesn't really matter. Just understand that some DAW programs are specific to operating systems one way or the other. You can find some pretty reasonable options if you're just trying to get going between $400 and $600 on refurbished and marketplace websites. And if it's a refurbished site, see if you can buy any kind of warranty or extended warranty to cover it. One benefit of running with a PC build is it is something that you can upgrade over time as things evolve and get more complicated, or you're taking on bigger projects. You can start investing in more memory, RAM, hard drive space, and things like that. Next is going to be your DAW or digital audio workstation. This is the software that you'll actually be composing in. Now, there's lots of options out there, but there are a few that really stand out when it comes to composing. As composers, we're going to be spending a lot of time manipulating MIDI as well as audio files, but heavy MIDI manipulation and programming. The big three I would probably look into would be like Logic, Cubase, Digital Performer. Those are kind of the industry standard for a lot of film composers. Now, I will say Reaper is a great option, especially if you're on a budget. I've seen more and more composers for game music using Reaper. Its entry level is extremely low, and there's lots of upgrade options and customization that you can do within Reaper. The first three that I mentioned between Logic, Cubase, and Digital Performer have lots of great stock plugins that also get you started, but I would do a little research on what it looks like for the first time investment. You know, a lot of them are between $200 and $600, but also one thing to consider is some companies offer free upgrades and some are pay to upgrade. Next up is going to be the audio interface. This is going to give you better analog to digital conversion, as well as less latency than your computer's built-in sound card. Personally, I've always been a big fan of universal audio interfaces. They have a really great budget option called the Volt that you can pick up for $200 or $300. As your projects grow and you start getting some income from your music, this is something that you can upgrade down the road. Next up, we have headphones and monitors. To me, this is one of the most crucial elements in the mix, because you can write great music all day and spend hours mixing it, but as soon as you print it down, listen to it in the car and on other systems, it's going to sound like trash if it wasn't translated well in a good set of headphones or monitors. Now, if I was going to go with one option, honestly, I would probably go with headphones over a set of studio monitors, because to be completely honest, you can buy, again, $1,000, $2,000 studio monitors. However, if your room is not treated, it's not really going to matter because those mixes aren't going to translate well. Now, in regards to studio monitors, if you want to go that route and you don't have the budget to treat your room correctly, there are some great options to EQ your speakers to adjust to the room, like SonarWorks. But again, if you're budget conscious, I would really go with a great set of headphones or the best ones that you can buy. A good example of a budget set of headphones would be something like the Audio-Technica ATH M30s or the Sony MDR 7506. Again, you're looking for something with a flat response that is meant for mixing, so you're hearing the truest form of your music so you can make correct mixing adjustments. Now, I will say if you can spend a little bit more, this is where I would actually put some money from the budget into the headphones and go with something like the Slate VSX headphones. I use these myself, and typically I find that I'm doing more mixing on it than I ever am on my studio monitors. So even though I do have a good set of studio monitors and I do have some treatment done to my room, it's not perfect. I might write and track things through the monitors. Any mixing and balance adjustments I'm always doing in the Slate VSX headphones. And then once again, I'll go back and kind of reference them on the studio monitors and A/B back and forth. But the Slate headphones are modeled to replicate the sound of Pro Studios that millions of albums have been mixed on. All right, now on to sample libraries. This is where things start to get expensive. Sample libraries are basically collections of virtual instruments, things like synths, brass, strings, percussion. You can spend $50,000 on libraries and still not have everything, so let's be smart about our options. A lot of the bigger companies have some really great free options. Companies like Spitfire Audio with the Labs, BBC Symphony Orchestra Discover, Decent Sampler, Piano Book. Spitfire Audio also has some great budget options in their originals series, things like cinematic pads, keys. A lot of times I'm also using a lot of the stock instruments that come in my libraries, especially with synthesizers, and just learning those tools really well, knowing them inside out and how to manipulate them to come up with your own unique sounds. Also, some of my favorite composers make their own instruments. There's a lot of power in learning the art of sampling instruments in a sampler and creating your own instruments, textures, and things that are uniquely your own. Everybody has the same sample libraries, so when you're on a budget, I would say learning to sample instruments the best you can and make your own creative instruments is going to be one of the best things that you can do. I've literally used the sound of my air conditioner unit as a sample and generated it into a sound texture for a horror film. And that's something that nobody will ever have on any other project. And if you want to deep dive into virtual instruments that are completely free, I have an entire video dedicated to that I'll link down in the description. You need a MIDI keyboard to play notes in virtual instruments. Don't even think about clicking notes around with your mouse. That is creative death. It's going to take way longer to get your productions done, and it's just not a creative way to think. Some good budget options are the M-Audio Keystation 49 or 61. There's some great budget options from companies like Akai. Arturia is a well-known brand that has some really great budget options. Their Keylab series, like the Keylab 49 or 61, would probably be my go-to if I was on a budget. The top two I would probably say for me would be the Arturia Keylab or the Native Instruments Complete Control 49. Some other options that you might want to look at when considering your total budget would be room treatment. If I was going to do anything, I would start with bass traps and control the bass frequencies and bass buildup, especially in the corners of your room, and maybe get a few panels to help with bouncing reflections in the room. If you're going to rely on studio monitors, you've got to get some kind of correct room treatment. And there's a lot of budget options where you can build your own. There's 1,000 videos on the web on how to build your own wall panels to cut down on reflections and bass traps. You're going to need to budget a little bit of money for cables. XLR cables, TRS cables, MIDI cables, USB cables. Sometimes it's helpful to draw out a diagram of everything that you have and everything that you'll need. Earlier this year, I replaced my computer and completely changed the setup, and it was really helpful to draw out some diagrams to know exactly everything that I needed to order to connect everything properly. External hard drives. This is going to be a must, even if you only have one to back up all your projects. Now, the golden rule, in my opinion, would be to back up things in 3 places. So I will typically do 2 different hard drives and offsite cloud storage. You do not want to be that person that has a file corrupted midway through a project and you have to explain to the director or developer that you just simply have to start back over. That's going to ruin the relationship. Ideally, what I would recommend is run all of your programs inside the computer, put your sessions on another external SSD, and then have another hard drive to back up both of those. I'll have all my sessions and sample libraries on SSDs. Then I bought a big 16 terabyte hard drive that backs up everything. Always back up your work. So at the end of the day, if you can get a used laptop with 16 gigs of RAM for, let's say, $500, audio interface for $120, some good headphones for around $100, something like the M-Audio Keystation for a keyboard for $130. Let's say you run Reaper as your DAW, run the free sample libraries, $90 in cables, you're looking at about $1,000. You can do this with a budget and grow as you get more projects and clients. The big thing to remember truly is at the end of the day, you don't need anything more than a computer, a DAW, and maybe a MIDI keyboard and some headphones. Start with what you can, start working on securing clients, and the best tool you can learn as a composer that you will use for the rest of your life is learning to sample your own instruments. Not only will it save you money, but they will be instruments that are uniquely yours that nobody else has. Starting with a budget, will it be perfect? No, but it will be enough to start and land your first gig and start securing some clients. Over time, get better monitors, get better audio interface, buy virtual instruments when they run sales a couple times a year, sign up for their newsletter for freebies. Also, I'll have links to all the gear that we discussed in the description below. Now stop watching YouTube and go write some music.